Hello and welcome, and thanks for joining us. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's our show for today. Air dominance. That's India's top priority amid threats from China and Pakistan at the border. New India's new force is leaving no stones unturned to achieve that goal. From bolstering its air defenses to preparing for future wars, the Indian military is becoming a force to reckon with. A crucial aspect of this effort involves acquiring next-generation warplanes. Well, today we have great news. India will finally get fifth-generation fighter jets. You heard that right. The government has taken a big step towards developing fifth-gen jets domestically. Once in possession of these coveted jets, India will join an exclusive club of countries currently consisting of the United States, Russia and China. Now let me say this straight. This is a big deal. Fifth-generation fighter jets are the apex predators of the sky. They're faster, meaner and more lethal. That is why the world's top military powers are working to develop them. Having these next-generation warplanes in one's fleet will make the country a formidable air force. Currently, there are 3 fifth-gen fighter jets in production. These are China's Chengdu J-20, Russia's Sukhoi 57, and the US's Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning. While America's F-22 Raptor, which was the first fifth-generation fighter jet, is currently being used, it is no longer being manufactured. Still, they are not going anywhere. The US plans to keep the F-22 Raptor airborne for the next 2 decades. As far as the Chinese J-20 jets are concerned, India need not be worried, because reports say that there are big gaps in its stealth tech. It is not a match for the American fighter jets. Reports further say that the Chengdu J-20 has copied its tech from American jets, the F-22 and the F-35. According to news outlets, China has more than 200 J-20s in its arsenal. And so, the Indian government's approval of a long-standing proposal to produce fifth-generation jets at home marks a pivotal moment. With this, India liberates itself from dependence on foreign fighter jets. The next generation Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, or AMCA, will be made within India, aligning seamlessly with the futuristic needs of the Indian Air Force. Reports suggest this swing role, AMCA, will boast of supersonic cruise capabilities, accompanied by an initial project investment of Rs 15,000 crore. This ambitious move follows the successful development of the Tejas light combat aircraft. Beyond bolstering India's strategic and tactical capabilities, the Indian government's decision embodies a big leap towards self-reliance in defense. And speaking of big leaps, there's one more aspect of securing the air, and that's developing anti-drone tech. And India's new weapon to secure the skies is a bird of prey. Yes, a real bird. The Indian Army has displayed this innovative fusion of military prowess during the joint military exercise between India and Japan, called Dharma Guardian. The Indian Army showcased 2 trained eagles. Their names are Arjun and Deep. And Arjun and Deep have been trained for anti-drone activities as well as surveillance missions. Faced with the menace of enemy drones and the need to carry out deeper surveillance without the worry of being tracked, the Indian Army is putting a flock of avian recruits through boot camp. Take a look. This is an ingenious method to counter drone intrusions. The bird is trained to identify drones and destroy it in the air. Birds like Arjun and Deep boost stealth options for surveillance and interception. Since they are real birds, they can navigate complex terrains without attracting any attention. And this is a critical advantage over conventional drones detectable by enemy radars. Now, this isn't the first time that India has demonstrated the bird's capability. During US-India military exercises last year, the Indian Army displayed what Arjun can achieve. Footage from the drills captured Arjun skillfully intercepting a quadcopter drone, showcasing the bird's precision and efficacy in such missions. China and India show off rival bird tech. It demonstrates a remarkable blend of traditional and cutting-edge military tactics. You may be wondering about the effectiveness of using birds of prey. Well, let me tell you that reports say that these birds have successfully taken down several hundred of quadcopters during training, at times destroying them completely. And guess what? None of the eagles were injured in the process. This right here is an example of how the Indian military is incorporating nature-inspired solutions to modern warfare challenges, particularly when it comes to drone warfare. With China making leaps in UAV technology and Pakistan buying state-of-the-art drones from Turkey, India is taking no chance. You see, China too has been developing its military technology inspired by birds' flight capability. Reports say that researchers at Northwestern Polytechnical University have been working on an ornithopter named Little Falcon. It's a bird-like drone tested in Xi'an. It is at the forefront of UAV design. It is reportedly capable of military reconnaissance, among other applications. In fact, the Chinese state broadcaster CCTV reported how China has a new robotic bird. Its nimble flight controls have been made possible by the invention of a new crank mechanism. It allows the drone to fold its wings and flap them at the same time. China's robotic bird can undertake surveillance missions, strike missions, and recon missions. So both India and China have showcased their new bird technology at a time when the world has been transformed by drone warfare. But there are projects in the pipeline that will boost India's air defense. India's Cabinet Committee on Security, or CCS, has also approved the acquisition of 34 Advanced Light Helicopter, or ALH. They are called the Dhruv choppers. They will greatly aid the Indian Army and the Indian Coast Guard. Manufactured domestically by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, these helicopters serve several purposes. They are, after all, twin-engine, multi-role, multi-mission next-generation choppers. They come with a 0.7 mm gun, which gives it a huge capability from a low-intensity maritime operations standpoint. The automatic flight control system is hugely superior to the previous one. The forces will use these choppers for search and rescue, special operations, and coastal surveillance. That's not all. The Indian Air Force is also in the process of procuring a 114 multi-role fighter aircraft, or MRFA, designed to perform various missions such as air-to-air combat, air-to-ground attack, and electronic warfare. India's multi-role fighter aircraft will replace the aging fleet of Soviet-era MiG-21. So there you have it. India's priorities are not only securing its borders, but also protecting the international rules-based order, while at the same time modernizing its forces. Sure, its neighbor China has the strength of fleet and strategic inventory, but the Indian Air Force has reliable platforms, strategic bases, and experienced troops. Add to that the big technological leaps that are being taken. They make the Indian military a future-ready force. This is New India's new force. Meanwhile, China is preparing for a sea war against India and America. Let me repeat that. China is preparing for a sea war against India and the US. Chinese President Xi Jinping has already sounded the war bugle. He has met a delegation of the People's Liberation Army, also China's armed police force. He told the teams to start preparations. What kind exactly? The security teams have been told to build cyberspace defense systems. Additionally, improve the ability to maintain national security. The Chinese state broadcaster quoted Xi asking the Chinese armed forces to coordinate the preparations for maritime military conflicts, the protection of maritime rights and interests, and the developments of the maritime economy. Just look at the timing of this comment. There has been a flare-up in the South China Sea, one that the Philippines is calling the most serious yet. The Chinese Coast Guard has been ramming its ships into Philippine vessels. There were two such incidents this week. First, a Chinese Coast Guard ship crashed into a Philippine Coast Guard ship. Just an hour later, the Coast Guard ship attacked a Filipino supply vessel. The boat was blocked, harassed, and water cannoned. Do you see what China has been up to? It is escalating tensions, trying to trigger a war at sea, all the while singing sermons of peace on land. Just yesterday, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi gave an unsolicited advice to other countries. Don't take sides in the South China Sea, he said. Here's a quote. We will not allow goodwill to be abused, nor will we tolerate the distortion of maritime law in the face of deliberate infringements. We will take justified actions to defend our rights in accordance with the law. In the face of unwarranted provocations, we will respond with prompt and legitimate countermeasures. We also advise certain countries outside the region not to stir up trouble, take sides, and become disruptors and instigators in the South China Sea. Which countries do you think China is referring to? The United States and India. Let's go one by one now. Like we have been telling you, the US and the Philippines have a defense agreement. So if one country is attacked, the other one must come to its aid. So far, the Philippines President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., or Bongbong Marcos as he's called, has insisted that the time has not yet come to invoke the clause of the Security Pact. But what happens now that she has sounded the war bugles and insisted on starting preparation for war? Marcos is already calling Chinese conduct alarmist. Let me quote him. I think that we cannot view this in any way but in the most serious way, he says. How long before Marcos requests the US for help? China is already preparing for that eventuality. Also for a possible confrontation with India. Beijing has already laid the foundation for a possible outpost in the Indian backyard. If you're thinking the Maldives, then you're on the correct path. Earlier this week, China signed a security agreement with the Maldives. The contents are a secret. The deal was signed a day before India commissioned the INS Jatayu in Minicoy, just some 100-odd kilometers from the Maldives. India is expanding its navy, equipping it with modern machines, commissioning new bases, jetties, machinery. Earlier this week, the Indian Navy commissioned a squadron of the MH-60 helicopter. These choppers come with anti-submarine warfare capabilities. Simply put, they will be able to spot Chinese submarines, regardless of how deep they are hiding in the sea. India and the US have signed a deal for 24 MH-60 choppers. They will all be in India by 2025. China has clearly threatened. Beijing wishes to militarize the Indian Ocean. It has tricked countries into acquiring ports in the Indian Ocean, starting from Sri Lanka's Hambantota port to the Gwadar port in Pakistan. China also has presence in Bangladesh's Chittagong port, in the Dorile port in Djibouti. And now, China is pulling the strings in the Maldives. On paper, it may have managed to acquire strategic locations encircling India, but who rules the waters these ports surround? Beijing's dreams of dominating the Indian Ocean have been shattered by India's formidable navy. India is now also building a naval base in the Great Nicobar. It overlooks the Strait of Malacca, the water body from which 80% of China's oil supplies pass. The power and potential of the Indian Navy has been on display in recent weeks. It has been saving ships from all forms of terror in the sea, from the Somali pirates to the Houthi rebels. India has proven itself as the hero of the high sea. So here's the thing. China can prepare for a sea war against India all it wants. It can prepare for a sea war against the US too. But does it even have a chance at victory? Look at the Chinese naval force vis-a-vis the Indian Navy and the US Navy. Some stats. The Chinese Navy has around 350 ships. The Indian Navy has 150. The US 280. Naval aircraft. PLA Navy, a little over 700. India, 400. The US, over 4,000. Aircraft carriers, India and the PLA 2 each. The US, 11 destroyers. PLA Navy, 49. India, 12. US Navy, 92. We have also put the numbers for the frigates, the corvettes and submarines for you to see. So I ask, which side do you think is the stronger one, China or the combined navies of India and the United States? We are not even factoring in the navies of the American allies who will be bound to join in this war. So there goes China's plan for taking on India and America at sea. Let's move on now. Last night I told you about how killer agents have been duping Indians. How an elaborate job scam is throwing Indians into the war zone in Ukraine. The victims are offered well-paying jobs, government positions in Russia. They are made to sign documents in Russian and tricked into fighting on Russian front lines in a war that has nothing to do with them. In the last 24 hours, the story has grown bigger. India's Central Bureau of Investigation has now taken strict and decisive action. It has busted an elaborate human trafficking network running across the country. Who all were involved? So far, we only know of 4 accused. There could be more. There's the 24/7 RAS Overseas Foundation from New Delhi, OSD Brothers Travels and Visa Services from Mumbai, Adventure Visa Services from Chandigarh, and of course, Baba Vlogs Overseas Recruitment Solutions, the one I already told you about yesterday. A case of human trafficking has been registered against these visa offices and agents. Meanwhile, the CBI is still at work. It is conducting searches at around 13 locations across Delhi, Trivandrum, Mumbai, Ambala, Chandigarh, Madurai and Chennai. So far, it has seized cash amounting to over 50 lakh rupees. Now that is more than $60,000. Incriminating documents and electronic records. This includes laptops, mobiles, desktops, CCTV footage and more. While the investigation is underway as of now, the CBI has discovered that there have been 35 instances of trafficking. Yes, 35. Reports say agencies in Delhi alone sent around 180 people to Russia, mostly on student visas. There is much more to be uncovered yet, but one clear villain in this story is Faisal Khan, the man behind the YouTube channel called Baba Vlogs. Before telling you more, there's something that I want you to see.
आर्मी का कॉन्सेप्ट समझते कि आर्मी के अंदर काम भाई तुम लोगों को कोई रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है, कोई यहाँ पर आके तुम लोगों को तोप नहीं चलाने का, फायरिंग नहीं करने का, बॉर्डर पे नहीं खड़े होने का। एक सिंपल सी सिचुएशन समझो कि भाई ये कंट्री के अंदर 1000 आर्मी, अभी यहाँ पर मारामारी वॉर वगैरह कुछ नहीं चल रहा है, वो बहुत बॉर्डर के लोग अंदर चले गए, यूक्रेन का भी कुछ हिस्सा लोग ने ले लिया है, तो वहाँ पर अभी आर्मी इनकी वहाँ चले गई। तो सीधी बात है, पीछे इनको चाहिए कि कुछ लोग हो जो ये सारी चीज़ों को संभाले, चीज़ों को ध्यान रखे, उनको मैन पावर की जरूरत पड़ रही है। तो ये चीज़ को कौन हैंडल करेगा? ये चीज़ को हैंडल करेगी तुम लोग। जैसे मान के चलो अभी लोग ने ये बिल्डिंग को खाली करा दिया, कोई पीछे बिल्डिंग है उसको खाली करा दिया, तो मोस्टली जो काम रहेगा यहाँ पर वो ये रहेगा कि डिमोलिश बिल्डिंग को खाली कराना, उसके अंदर के जो सामान है, कीमती सामान है, उसको बाहर निकालना, इनकी जो पुराने असला बारूद वगैरह है उसकी ध्यान रखना। मान के चलो ऐसा कुछ भी काम हो सकता है, मोस्टली सिक्योरिटी हेल्पर इस टाइप का काम है।
Did you listen to that? Where do I even begin? This man, this fraudster, is confidently selling his scheme to gullible Indians. He recorded the video in St. Petersburg, claiming how peaceful the place is and how the war is happening far away on the borders. As you heard it, he clearly said that those applying will get a position of an army helper, that they won't have anything to do with the fighting going on at the border. These are his own words. What does the so-called job entail then? Some harmless cleanup work far behind the borders, well away from the battlefield. Faisal Khan is even making promises of taking accountability of the applicant's safety. Now, this was just a snippet. The entire video is full of shameless, blatant lies. The man further went on to describe the procedure. Before I tell you about it, I urge you to not fall for any of it. The fraudster claimed that the paperwork would take some 90 days. The whole procedure would cost 3 lakh rupees, which many have been willing to pay, considering the fake return on investment. The paperwork would be followed by a 3-month training period. During this period, the job applicants will be paid 40,000 rupees per month. After that, their salary would increase to 1 lakh rupees per month. The skiller agent also boasted that the personnel would get an official government card and that they would even get a Schengen visa to roam around, travel across Europe. Now, if I hadn't told you the reality, if I hadn't told you that all of this is actually an elaborate scam, the prospects sounded quite nice, quite appealing, didn't they? Almost too good to be true, and that's exactly what they are. So many Indians have fallen prey to this scam. 2 have died. Many more have been gravely injured. If reports are to be believed, then hundreds of others are yearning to come back home, yearning for India's safety, the love of their families, to return to their good old normal lives. Will they be so fortunate to come back home? Well, a lot is in the hands of the Indian government. We'll, of course, keep bringing you the latest developments here on Gravitas. Let me now tell you about a shocking incident coming from Nigeria. More than 200 school children have been kidnapped by gunmen. This is the biggest mass abduction from a school since 2021. How could this have happened? Were no lessons learned from the past? What were authorities doing? Our next report has some answers.
The shocking incident took place in the northern town of Kuriga. This is located in the Kaduna state of northwest Nigeria. Gunmen kidnapped more than 280 students during a raid on a school.
A teacher leading the school assembly was kidnapped. The teacher said he could not run away because some students depended on him for protection. He was kidnapped. A vigilante was also killed while he was trying to scare the gunmen away by shooting in the air. But he was killed.
This is one of the largest mass abductions from a school in more than 3 years. Distraught parents and residents blame lax security measures in the area.
Please come and help us. Don't leave us. We have not eaten. Please help us. Where is the president? Where is the governor? Students are inside the bush. In one household, 7 children were kidnapped, while in another household, 5 children were also kidnapped.
Here's what we know so far. Local government officials in Kaduna state have confirmed the kidnapping. They say they are still trying to establish exactly how many children had been abducted. News reports say at least 200 have been abducted. The state governor has promised to get the students released, but the people of Nigeria are all too familiar with such kidnappings. You see, mass kidnappings for ransom are common in the country. Criminal gangs have targeted schools and colleges in the past, especially in the northwest. The kidnappings have kept thousands of children from attending school in Africa's most populous country. This incident marks the second mass abduction in the West African nation in less than a week. Such abductions have been a source of alarm since 2014, when Islamic extremists kidnapped more than 200 schoolgirls in Borno State's Chibok town. In recent years, the abductions have been concentrated in northwest and central Nigeria, where dozens of armed groups often target villagers and travelers for huge ransoms. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
You must have heard stories about the rise and fall of a person. But when was the last time you saw a giant company fall from a height? Meet Boeing. The American plane maker has fallen from grace. Not too long ago, you saw a Boeing jet's plug door falling off midair. Take a look. Well, guess what's happened now? Tires of Boeing planes are also falling from the sky. Take a look. This United Airlines flight was going from San Francisco in the US to Osaka in Japan. That's halfway around the world, but the journey was cut short minutes after takeoff. Like you, one of the tires of the plane flew off shortly after takeoff. There were 235 passengers on board this plane, 10 flight attendants and 4 pilots. That's a total of 249 people. They had a close shave. The plane was forced to turn around and make an emergency landing. Thankfully, no one died. But many could possibly have. Let's start with the impact on ground. The tire fell on a parking lot. Videos circulating on social media showed damaged vehicles. You can also see a dented fence. How much do you think these tires weigh? Over 100 kgs each. They are massive. A tire so heavy falling from the sky could be fatal. It could have fallen anywhere. A car with a driver and passenger inside. On a person harmlessly walking down the road. On a baby playing in the park. Or on a mother going to pick up her child from the school. I hope you get the severity of what happened in the US on Thursday. An aeroplane tire falling from the sky is no joke. I haven't even come to the part about what it means for those inside the aircraft. Those on board this United flight were lucky that the plane managed to safely make an emergency landing. Because trust me, odds were not in their favor. While landing, the plane could have tilted towards the missing tire. The wings would have touched the ground when the plane touched down at a high speed. What next? A fire. Like I said, those on board this flight were lucky, much like those on board the Alaska Airlines flight where the plug door blew out mid-air. Why don't we replay that clip for you?
This wasn't even the emergency door. We're at the end of the plane, so the emergency door is right there. It was just a piece of the plane.
Goes without saying, this too was a Boeing jet. So what's really happening here? In short, this is Boeing's reputation nosediving and taking along with it the safety of all those boarding Boeing jets. There are over 10,000 Boeing jets in service around the world. That's what the American plane maker claims. Just imagine how many lives Boeing is endangering every minute. All this while, the spotlight was on one Boeing 737 MAX jet. This was a model of the Lion Air Flight 610 and the Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302, both of which nosedived and crashed less than 6 months apart in 2018 and 2019. Killing everyone on board. The United Airlines plane, whose tire fell off, was not even a MAX jet. It was a Boeing 777. Should civil aviation bodies around the world now also ground 777s and start checking them for safety? Here's an idea. Maybe they should check all Boeing jets. A few days ago, the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States published a report. It said that Boeing's implementation of the safety culture is, quote, inadequate and confusing. This is the American FAA slamming a company that was once the face of American soft power. US presidents still travel on Boeing jets, but America is no longer vouching for the safety of these planes. Then who is? Boeing is shifting blame. The company has sacked the head of its 737 MAX program. Ed Clark was in the company for over 18 years. How does that instill confidence in Boeing's safety? How does that help in any way? The makers of this flying coffin need to get their act together and fast. The US President Joe Biden is so haunted by the two wars that he seems to have forgotten the bigger issue at hand, and that is to save his presidency. Does he really think his foreign policies will help him do that? Let me give you some context here. 2 years ago, right after the Ukraine war broke out, President Biden opened his State of the Union address by vowing to stop Vladimir Putin. At that time, the House chamber lapped it up, even gave a series of standing ovations. So Biden sought to use the same technique again. In today's address, his opening remarks again narrated Ukraine's plight and how Putin's territorial ambitions need to be contained. But this time around, it wasn't met with the same fervor. What has changed? Apart from war fatigue, it's the political environment of the US. But somebody forgot to send Mr. President the memo that his techniques have become outdated, just like him. Democrats are frustrated by Biden's handling of the war in Gaza. They have been divided over the president's vocal support of Israel. To reset the conversation, Biden tried to shift the focus to Gaza this time. He promised dramatic new actions to help the Palestinian civilians. This included setting up a temporary port on Gaza coast for swift aid delivery. He even used his toughest language yet against Israel's handling of the conflict, all to appease the Democrats. But it doesn't seem to be working, not at all, because it is still all about the war. He started his speech by talking about foreign policy, and he ended it with the same. It seems Biden is so consumed with what's happening outside that he's losing grip over what is really going on in America. That is, he's failing to woo Americans at this point. Consider what happened on the Super Tuesday. Traditionally, it is one of the most important dates on the US political calendar. That's because Americans from 15 states and 1 territory vote to choose their candidates. And as it turns out, hundreds and thousands of them cast their ballots for no candidate in Democratic primaries. This came after Michigan presidential primary, where the uncommitted choice garnered over 100,000 votes. Reports say this uncommitted movement is in response to Biden's poor handling of the war. Democratic supporters want Biden to call for an immediate ceasefire, also to halt US aid to Israel, and to do it before the elections. But in his address, Biden only spoke of more support to both the wars, and he was roasted for it by his rival, Donald Trump.
On the run from his record and lying like crazy to try and escape accountability for the horrific devastation he and his party have created. All the while, they continue the very policies that are causing this horror show to go. We cannot take it any longer as a country.
The dispute over the future of US foreign policy is growing. Nearly half of the Republicans now believe that the US is giving too much support to Ukraine. 41% of US adults disapprove of Biden's handling of the war in Gaza. Hundreds of protesters blocked Biden's motorcade route to the Capitol before his address. They held banners saying, "Biden's legacy is genocide." And as Biden endures all this, Ukraine's First Lady Olena Zelenska and Putin critic Navalny's wife, Yulia Navalnaya, didn't even take the pain to attend his state address. To me, it looks like Biden needs a new campaign strategy, because the one focused on the wars doesn't seem to be working, not at all. Today, Indian President Draupadi Murmu has nominated a new member to serve in the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the parliament. It's Sudha Murthy. She's an author, a philanthropist, and the mother-in-law of British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Her nomination coincides with International Women's Day. Expressing delight at Murthy's nomination, Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated her. He said that her presence in the Rajya Sabha is a powerful testament to the country's Nari Shakti, to women power. He said in a social media post that her contributions to diverse fields, including social work, philanthropy and education, have been immense and inspiring. Sudha Murthy has been appointed by the President. Remember, in India, the President nominates 12 members to the Rajya Sabha. The 12 personalities are those who have special knowledge or practical experience in art, literature, science and social service. The rationale behind this principle of nomination is to provide eminent personalities a place in the Rajya Sabha without going through the process of election. Here's some more about Sudha Murthy. At 73, Murthy is a famous philanthropist and author. She is also the former chairperson of Infosys Foundation. Her husband, Narayan Murthy, is the founder of the IT giant Infosys. Her daughter is Akshita Narayan Murthy, a businesswoman and venture capitalist, who is also married to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Rishi Sunak. Born in North Karnataka, Murthy did her graduation in engineering, securing the first rank across all branches. She earned a gold medal from the Institute of Engineers. She then started a career as an engineer with Telco, now known as Tata Motors. She is a prolific writer, having written in English and Kannada. With 30 books and over 200 titles, this includes novels, non-fiction, children's books, travelogues, technical books and memoirs to her name. Her works have been translated into major Indian languages, selling over 26 lakh copies across the country. Sudha Murthy is also known for her advocacy of social issues. In fact, Murthy is actively involved in public healthcare initiatives with the Gates Foundation. She has established orphanages, contributed to rural development, advocated for computer and library facilities in government schools, and founded the Murthy Classical Library of India at the Harvard University. For her social work, Murthy was awarded the Padma Shri back in 2006. It is India's 4th highest civilian honour. Last year, the Government of India awarded her the Padma Bhushan, the 3rd highest civilian award. Her list of achievements don't end quite there. For her literary achievements, Murthy has received 7 honorary doctorates. She has won the R.K. Narayan Award for Literature, another award for excellence in Kannada literature, and the Lifetime Achievement by Crossword Book Awards. Her famous novel, Dollar Bahu, was originally authored by her in Kannada and later translated into English. The novel was made into a TV series by ZTV in 2001. She also wrote a story, Runa, which was adapted as a Marathi film. Now, speaking of nominations to the Rajya Sabha, will election dates to the Lok Sabha be announced tomorrow? The general election to elect the members of the 18th Lok Sabha, the House of the People, is expected to take place in the coming months of April and May. The ruling alliance of the NDA is all set to go up against the newly formed mega opposition alliance called India. With the official tenure of Prime Minister Modi-led 17th Lok Sabha session set to expire on 16th of June 2024, all political parties have kick-started their poll campaigns. The last elections marked a landslide victory for the BJP-led NDA, which won 353 out of 543 seats. The BJP on its own won a total of 303 seats, which was 31 more than the required number of seats for the majority. That is 272. India is awaiting the official announcement for the dates of the polls from the Election Commission of India. However, the expected timeline for the elections is in April and May 2024. The voting is expected to take place in multiple phases. In 2014, it was held in 9 phases, while in 2019, it was reduced to 7 phases. Notably, reports suggest that this year, the official number of voters is all set to witness a significant rise of 6 crore, that is. It will take the official number of eligible voters from 90 crore to 96 crore. That number is enough to make it the largest election the world has ever seen. And this is why we call it the biggest festival of democracy. As far as parties are concerned, the ruling alliance of the NDA will once again be led by the BJP, with a total of 37 parties contesting the polls under the NDA banner. Meanwhile, an alliance of 25 parties led by the Indian National Congress will be challenging the Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led NDA in the upcoming polls. under the banner of the India Alliance. Now, many female scientists, engineers and leaders have made major breakthroughs over the years. Did you know that some of the key technologies that you use almost daily have been invented by women? On International Women's Day, here's a reminder of the many contributions of women over the years.
There are many women who have made significant contributions to the field of technology. They have invented various important technologies that we rely on today. But sadly, women are still underrepresented in tech. As Women's Day is approaching, we tell you about some interesting inventions created by women over the years. There are a few surprises as well. Can you do without a heater in your car during winter? You know that you can't, and for that, you can thank mechanical engineer Margaret Wilcox, who invented the first ever car heater. In 1893, Margaret Wilcox patented the design for the very first car heater. What's even more interesting, she did it in an era where being a mechanical engineer was a rarity, and it was even more difficult for a woman. And it's not just the heater in your car. The wiper to clear off the windshield was also the brainchild of a woman. It was at the beginning of the 20th century when Mary Anderson discovered that people had to stop their cars and get out of them to clear snow and ice off windshields. American inventor Mary Anderson is popularly known for devising the first operational windscreen wiper in 1903. This innovation has an interesting history. Home security devices come in really handy when you are away. They let you remotely monitor your house. But did you know that the first home security system was developed by a woman? African-American inventor Marie Van Britten Brown realized that law enforcement officers in her neighborhood were slow in responding to calls. So she found her own way to ensure safety. Her invention paved the way for modern home security systems that we use today. Wi-Fi is one thing that most of us can't live without. Be it airports or cafes, the first thing that many of us look for is access to Wi-Fi. But who invented it? Meet Hedy Lamarr. She invented what eventually became the precursor to many wireless technologies such as Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. These popular wireless technologies are now used by billions of people around the world. Women inventors have played a vital role in the world of innovation. Truly, we need more women leaders in tech.
The world of manga and anime has suffered a great loss today. Akira Toriyama, the creator of popular manga Dragon Ball Z, has died at the age of 68. Fans all across the world have been mourning the loss of the creator and manga writer Akira Toriyama. The Dragon Ball Z website confirmed that he died of an acute subdural hematoma on March 1st. Toriyama was the brain behind the widely popular anime Dragon Ball Z. The show is one of the first few responsible for introducing this concept to the West. Toriyama created, wrote as well as illustrated Dragon Ball Z, which was first serialized in 1984. The martial arts series gave birth to unforgettable characters like Goku, Piccolo and Bulma, before spawning into an influential multimedia franchise. Interestingly, the idea for Dragon Ball Z was inspired from Toriyama's love for Hong Kong martial arts films, especially those of Jackie Chan. But Toriyama's claim to fame came much before the release of Dragon Ball. Born in Japan in 1955, Toriyama started off his career with designing posters for an advertising agency. He published his first manga titled Wonder Island in 1978, which went unnoticed. However, that did not deter him. He kept creating new stories until he produced his breakout manga, Dr. Slump, a manga that follows the adventures of a girl robot and her creator that put him on the market, on the map. His artistic brilliance even earned him the prestigious Shogakukan Manga Award in 1981. Toriyama began to be more widely known outside Japan by the 1990s as the popularity of manga, anime, increased. The world over, in fact. In fact, he was even knighted by the French government in 2019 for his contributions to the art world. Tributes for the late star have been pouring in since the news of his death broke out. Akira, the creator of One Piece, put out a heartfelt statement for his fellow artist, and Japanese and Chinese governments offered their condolences.
Toriyama has created many comic works loved by a lot of people, both in Japan and abroad, such as Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball. He's also designed characters for the Dragon Ball animation, which have been broadcast in more than 40 countries around the world, and the Dragon Quest video game series. He's left a great footprint, not only in the comic world, but also in various kinds of media.
We deeply mourn the passing of Mr. Toriyama and express our sincere sympathy to his family. Mr. Toriyama is a famous cartoonist whose works are also popular in China. I have noticed that many Chinese netizens have also expressed their condolences over his death. We expect and believe that more visionary people from Japan will take an active part in China-Japan cultural exchanges and friendship between the two countries.
Well, with the death of Akira Toriyama, a void has been left in the manga world which cannot be filled. And with that, it's a wrap on Gravitas for tonight. Thanks for watching the show with me, Priyanka Sharma. Stay tuned. Global News continues.
Makers of New India, a special WION series.
We are in a small town in southern India where big stories are written.
Hanyo means it is a Konkani word, come here. In India, that time ice cream was little picking up. We thought why we should not start this concept in India.